Things I want to go over with this discussion. So, understanding the estrus cycle, tips for heat detection. Just briefly, we'll go over some breeding techniques there, and discuss ways to manipulate the estrus cycle, and just kind of go over some common causes of poor conception rates and how to work through that a little bit. So, the estrus cycle, again, so once we start getting into a lot of the numbers, right, it's always averages. So just bear that in mind. It's always an average. There's always some outliers, and you probably some genetic differences and that sort of thing. So just keep that in mind as we're going through. So on average, puberty of 5 to 6 months of age, they have a 21-day heat cycle. So the length of a heat is around 2 days in gilts. Sows 2 to 4 days, usually a little bit longer. Ovulation.
So that gilt is only going to show for 2 days?
Usually they're showing less, yeah.
Really?
Mm-hmm. In general, yeah. Do you not agree with, or do you feel like you see them for longer, or?
Oh yeah.
Do you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why, again, what I've read is that they'll ovulate, at about 60 hours.
Mm-hmm.
So I just, like the first day, let them sit,
Mm-hmm.
and then I breed them.
And then you breed them. What breed of pigs do you have?
A Landry Yorkshire.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Crosses. Okay. Yeah. No, that's interesting. Yeah, no, there's certainly variability of that. You'll read different numbers.
Now, different farms have different, once you wean them to come back and eat,
Mm-hmm.
we're working like 3 to 5 days
Mm-hmm.
before they'll recycle.
3 to 5. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Some farms will tell me, day 2. They can get, a lot of them, they're getting 2 days after they wean them. Some will tell me, I'm more 5 to 7.
Yeah.
There's a lot of factors that go into that.
Yeah.
A lot. I think some of it is just, just what's regular. It's what's regular at your farm.
Right.
What's regular with your pigs. So yeah, there's a lot of variables in that. But so ovulation. So that is generally occurring 30 to 40 hours after the onset of that estrus. This is a very high tech drawing, but I just kind of like, if you're more visual, sometimes I need that, so I just threw this drawing in there. But so these circles is supposed to represent the ovary, really, and the little circle within it is your developing follicle there. So your 21-day heat cycle, on the onset of estrus. So you're going to get your ovulation of your follicle about 40 hours after your onset of estrus there. So, and this is showing one that's been progesterone, so that probably means it got bred. So just a visual. So we're going to talk about signs of a heat. So it's overt signs of an estrus. So swelling and reddening of the vulva. Vulvar discharge that is clear and sticky. Some people call it a thumb test, where they actually can take some of that discharge in your fingers to see if it's sticky between your 2 fingers. Riding, if she's in a pen with other females or other pigs, riding other animals, actively seeking a boar, so moving towards that boar, trying to get into that boar pen, erect ears, usually in the direction of a boar. Probably one of the most important, you could say, would be like the standing reflex or the back pressure test. So when you're actively pressing onto the back of the female and she's locking up, referred to as the back pressure test. So all signs of heat. Again, another visual for the people that are more visual. I didn't recognize this as a pretty busy diagram here, but this is just going over in general. So usually you're going to see like a lot of the vulva. One of the more earlier signs I would say would be the vulva swelling and reddening. Also, this is showing the standing back pressure, test, but usually probably about a day after, the estrus cycle has started in this pig. The standing heat, I think they're saying that one's, so they say are 2.5 days that they're saying in this particular, diagram, but it's looking at, your best time to inseminate, right, or your best time to breed, which, almost always is, when she's in a good standing heat, I would say, and generally you're going to be doing 2 doses of semen or a couple breeding attempts with your boar. And the goal is you're trying to catch I would say you're almost trying to catch that ovulation. So that's why, especially in this insemination protocol, you're trying to get the semen up there ready to catch that ovulation, to catch that follicle. So the semen can live in there. There's, again, a lot of factors if you're using AI versus just natural mating, then there's different extenders, but say by the most, it can live up there about a day or so, 24 hours or less. It also just obviously takes time for sperm to travel up the reproductive tract and also undergo capacitation, which is the ability of the sperm to actually fertilize the egg. It has to go through some physical changes before it's ready to go into a follicle. So that all takes some time.
Is that correct up there? It says, "Hi, do not inseminate," up at the top, right in the middle there.
Oh yeah, I never noticed that.
That should be.
It should be doing so.
Yeah.
It's your high for. Yeah, you know what? I never. That's a good. That's a good note. Yeah, I didn't make this. I stole this from somewhere. So, yeah, that's funny. I never noticed that before. I've given I put this picture in a lot of presentations. I need to scratch that out. Yeah, good. That's good. Nice you picked up on that. Yeah, it should be your high fertility, I think they're trying to say. So, yeah, that's your time you would inseminate. Yep. So, thank you. Okay, we were just chatting about this. So, insemination, or your time to breed, approximately 24 hours, maybe a little less, right, prior to ovulation. So, like I was saying, they can live in the reproductive tract for about a day or less. They need time to travel, time to prepare for fertilization. So on the farm, what does that mean? She's in a good standing heat. It's detected. You're usually breeding her, and then if it's AI, you're usually breeding her 24 hours later. Sometimes some farms are even giving 3 doses. For natural breeding, obviously you're getting the boar in the pen. You're either watching, making sure that they're mating several times within that period. I like this scoring system. Obviously this is probably even more important at a commercial farm where, there's kind of a range of heat, right? And so they list them out, like one being probably like more so in heat or, higher level, probably more apt to breed or inseminate, just by reactions to the boar, reflexing immediately. Even without any sort of back pressure is even better. The maintenance of that standing reflex. Some, sows, even, once the boar starts walking around, she'll be locked up solid, even without direct contact. And the acceptance of the semen, that's going to involve with AI, how well she accepts the semen, how much stimulation that you have to give her while you're inseminating, which is probably not a big discussion that we could really need to get into. I always like this, the pork board puts out this, and this is always a nice poster I see in a lot of farms, and I like it. I think it does a nice job of showing, ways to, detect heat. And just some pictures, again, nice swollen vulva there, reddened. Some can be a little bit tricky. I think even more so in some of the older sows, like they sometimes might not tend to get as enlarged or inflamed, but if you actually kind of manually spread the vulvar lips there, you can see a little bit more of that red inflammation. Just showing different pictures of the discharge you're looking for. They're doing the thumb test here. Very interested in the boar, right? Nice erect ears. Interested. This is very blurry, but there is actually a boar right there standing right in front of the crate there, but positive on the back pressure test. She looks nice and locked up. Her ears erect, staring straight at the boar. So as far as, a heat check protocol, obviously nose-to-nose contact, direct contact is the best. I think it's, to be consistent with your heat check protocol is important, so kind of doing it at the same time, usually in the morning, I think is better. So a lot of times circus sows are coming into heat during the nighttime. Also in the morning, it's nice cooler weather, especially, in August, it's nicer to kind of get them up in the morning. The herd's a little bit more active as well. So, but I think the big thing is just consistency, trying to do it at the same time. As far as contact goes, I think, especially when you got new gilts, new breeding stock into the site, around 10 to 15 minutes of like direct physical contacts, or whether that be in the same pen, is important on a daily basis. Wean sows, depending on your herd, sometimes they might really only need a few minutes of direct, kind of nose-to-nose contact to get them to come back into heat there. But I think the thing to always recognize is more is not always better with contact time. So there's been enough research to look at females actually becoming desensitized to boars if it's just constant contact. So they get familiarized with the scents, they're not as excited anymore, and so maybe that doesn't always matter, but for some of those animals that are not coming into heat as well, that certainly could be an issue. The thing is, he shouldn't be living with her all the time by any means. And even as far as location in the farm, ideally you could have maybe even a whole separate barn. That's not always feasible for a lot of people, but having him away from if you've got like your intake fans, you don't want him right in front of the fan blowing his scent around to the whole rest of the barn at all times. So keeping him away from fans, also something that not everybody thinks about. So there's been, a decent amount of research that's been coming out in the last couple of years. This will be topics when I go to vet meetings about good heat check bores. And so, it's easy, right? You just throw an intact bore in there to check for heat, and people just think, oh, that's all you have to do. He's just got to be present, right? So, but there's been more research looking at really, the quality of that boar. And his libido is really important, more important than probably we even realize. So it's not enough just to have him present. You need to have high libido boars in your farm. So these are ones that are chirping, talking to the girls, they're salivating, they're disgusting, they're urinating all over the place, they're really interested. I go out to big commercial farms where they've got the heat check bore out and he's just walking around eating food and hanging out. That's not the bore you want. He's not a high libido bore. Maybe he's great genetics, maybe he has good semen motility. Not argue that might be true, but as far as good libido bores that are going to pick out those girls that might not be showing rock hard heats, you need a good bore. You need a good high libido bore. So.
Are you finding that, like, commercial producers, these AI dummies and show pig bores are useless? They couldn't breed a 55-gallon drum laying down with a out of it?
Yeah. There's probably some of that. The question was, how useful are some of the commercial bores in the herds? Some of it. I think some of it is just breeding boars that probably a little bit more docile or nice, because obviously it's a safety aspect of that, handling these boars on a daily basis, and they're just not necessarily, obviously they're not bred to do anything.
They can't do their job.
Right. Yeah.
They don't know what to do. All they know is they get up on a dummy and it's done for them.
Mm-hmm.
Dropping their legs and not be able to get into her. It's just so frustrating.
Yeah. No, that can be hard.
There are producers that are breeding commercial pigs that will work. Not all the show pigs. I know that's where the money is, but that's I would not like to farrow some of them gilts that are in them classes. They're so muscular. They're like bulldogs. Should be pulling every one of them.
Yeah, and that is a big problem in that world, in that show pig world. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I know there's been just like anything else, there's probably the perpetuation of some bad genetics and perpetuation of good genetics, right? You see that in the probably equine world, the dog show world, all of those things. We've probably done some things to detriment, to the industry with that kind of stuff. But yeah, no, I've run into that. I do. Yeah, I do see that. Yeah, so back to these, heat check bores, interest in the females, high libido, over a year of age, obviously sound, good body condition score. You don't want to be, it's easy, I think, a lot of people treat these almost as pets. A lot of times it's easy to overfeed these guys. You don't want to overfeed them. Ones that are not collected, or mated should be occasionally collected or mated. And again, back to the constant contact. They should not be in constant contact with these females. Keep them away from the intake fan so that the females are not, desensitized.
If you don't use a boar regularly, could he have a temporary sterility before, like if you don't use it for 3 months or 4 months?
So I don't know. Sterility would be the right term. Yeah. So the question was if you're not using a bore for 3 months, or like any sort of sterility issues. So probably the semen quality is out of that first collection, it's probably not going to be the best. Yeah. So that's why having the ability to kind of even mate him with somebody. Some people will use call sow or something that's going to go on the finishing truck, but they're not going to breed, but they let him have the opportunity to do it, or their hand collecting him. But yeah, from like the semen quality standpoint, not being like routinely collected can certainly affect the quality of the first collection. And it's just a brief overview. It seems like everybody's pretty much doing the natural thing. And again, for farms of this size, it probably is the best thing to do, but obviously we still have AI, and even a lot of the big farms are starting to switch to post-cervical artificial insemination. From a practicality standpoint, it's really good on these bigger farms because it can really save a lot of time. You don't have to have a boar standing in front of them. You actually do it when the boar, you still heat check with your boar, and then you actually put them away. You don't want the boars around when you're doing this post-cervical AI. You still have the regular catheter, kind of like you would this, and then there's also an inner catheter which slides through your regular AI catheter that goes up past the cervix when you deposit the semen past the cervix. But again, for farms small sizes, probably not that big of a benefit, really. Okay, let's talk about the drugs, right? So, reproductive manipulation in pigs. We're kind of, unfortunately, can't do all the things that maybe the cattle industry can do, but we do have some ability to manipulate the reproductive cycle. So, things you can do in the pig. You can abort them using lutealize. You can induce farrowing using lutealize. You can postpone farrowing using matrix. We can postpone estrus, time to breeding, with matrix. We can also stimulate estrus in non-cycling animals, for the most part, with BT600. What you cannot do is short cycle animals. And you cannot use matrix to time estrus in non-cycling animals. So therefore, you still have to time your breedings, be organized, plan in advance. You just don't have the ability to short cycle like you can in the cattle world. So PG600, so this is a combination of pregnant mare serum gonadotropin and the human chorionic gonadotropin. It mimics the follicle-stimulating hormone, which helps with egg production, and the luteinizing hormone, which is responsible for stimulating ovulation. It's 5 cc dose IM. So the indications for use with this: pre-pubertal gilts for induction of a fertile estrus in healthy pre-pubertal gilt, non-cycling gilts over 5.5 months of age and weighing at least 187 pounds. This is directly from the label. Or sows at weaning for induction of estrus in healthy wean sows experiencing delayed returns to estrus. So essentially what that means is gilts that have never shown a heat cycle can be treated with PG600 to stimulate their estrus cycle. They generally come into heat 4 to 6 days following treatment. Again, that's the average, right? So also, we're using this on sows that have not been found in heat within 21 days of being weaned. regardless, the average is 4 to 6 days, right? But you should still be heat checking. I would say at least even 2 days after, just to get the ones that we're probably maybe even going to cycle anyway, or are cycling earlier with this treatment. So it's not going to induce estrus in pigs that were already cycling. It's by no means 100% effective. It's a good drug, but it's not 100% effective. Still doesn't take away from the fact that you have to have good heat checking. Sows or gilts that don't exhibit a heat within the 7 days of their first dose, you can retreat them again. I'd say on a commercial farm, usually if you've done that twice and they're still not coming into heat, a commercial farm would call them. Now, obviously smaller farms, you might let her hang out a little bit longer, but this probably bigger farms they might do 2 and done. But so Matrix, it's a synthetic progestin, which is similar to progesterone, and the use for this is synchronization of estrus in sexually mature gilts that have had at least 1 estrus cycle. So this is an oral administration. It's 6.8 mLs daily for 14 days. Most people top dress this right on the feed, or you can do it directly into the mouth. I get a decent amount of phone calls that say, "Oh, she didn't eat that day," or "We're not sure if we got the dose in her." Redose if you're worried about that. It's not really going to hurt to give her another dose if she did get it. But it can hurt if she misses a dose. So if there's any doubt in your mind that she didn't receive the dose, redose that. Sows will generally come into heat 4 to 9 days after the last dose. I would say even 5 to 7 is probably, a lot of times it's even tighter than that, I would say, in my personal experience. But 4 to 9 days, they should be coming into heat after their last treatment. So this is useful when you're timing gilts to cycle into breeding groups, or when you're scheduling estrus to predict the semen needs on smaller operations. So this is only going to work on animals that are actively cycling. If a gilt has not reached puberty or the sow has stopped cycling, this is not going to work. It's not going to make them start. They have to already be cycling. It's our protocol for what I give people to use Matrix. So on animals, when you have a known heat date, you can begin treating on day 18 following the first day of their last estrus and continue until about 5 days prior to their desired breeding. You should start heat checking about 3 days after you finish the Matrix. With, again, the idea that they're going to come into heat about 4 to 9 days after you stop. So the protocol for animals with an unknown heat date, you're going to administer it once a day for 14 days, and you begin heat checking 3 days after you discontinue the Matrix, and again, should be coming into heat 4 to 9 days after you stop your last treatment. The protocol for delaying estrus in a weaned sow. So you begin the Matrix a day prior to weaning, and you administer the full dose daily and continue until the 4 days prior to your desired breeding. I started heat checking, I recommend even a day, like 2 days after you stop the Matrix. Seems to be like, weaned sows will they almost want to come into heat a little bit quicker. This is my personal experience after you stop doing that Matrix. So they usually come into heat about 4 to 5 days after that last dose. Safety concern, always want to make sure to tell people this. Women, childbearing years especially, always should be wearing plastic or nitrile gloves, non-latex gloves. The product can be absorbed through the skin, so use caution when handling it. If you get it on you, wash your hands off. Okay, and that's the IVU gel. So, newish product. It's been on the market for a couple of years now. So this stimulates the release of the luteinizing hormone, so it causes ovulation. And the indication for this is timed insemination in wean sow, so it's not for use in gilts. Here's just a picture that's on the website of this. So they have them as kind of their own special administration tool there to deposit it's an intravaginal administration to deposit the gel. They're right at the base of the cervix. So it's intravaginally, you're going to do 96 days post-weaning, 4 days post-weaning, and then you're in insemination 22 to 24 hours later, so the next morning, and you got to be really tight about that because this is timed ovulation. So. Okay. And then, yeah. So lastly, poor conception rates. This is a very big topic. We could probably spend all day on it. There's lots of different reasons why your girls are not getting bred, right? I mean, we've already covered some of these with the infectious diseases. Obviously, a lot of different environmental stressors, really hot summers, cold stress, things we talked about with the poor quality heat check bore, your breeding bore, anything with heat check management, so a personnel issue. Semen, which probably is not really a big deal for you guys, but handling and storage, to semen quality. If you have a boar that you're concerned about, you certainly, if you could collect him and even send off that semen for analysis to laboratories, you can do so. And then nutritional, obviously, anything that's really skinny, poor body condition score, breeding really lightweight gilts. So I always like to remind people that the development of a follicle, look at that, 80 to 100 days. That's a long time, right? And so a lot of that depends on nutrition, and even like the last probably 30 days of that follicle development, a lot of that depends on nutrition, good nutrition. And a lot of girls, especially, traditional commercial farm, they're developing that during lactation. So when they're already feeding another litter, they're developing the follicles that she's gonna be using during her next heat cycle. So feed intake during lactation is always important. It's important for the pigs that she's nursing. It's important for her, but she's developing the follicles during that time. So that's one of the reasons we're always driving feed intake during lactation. It's important. And then lastly, one other thing I always think about too, this time you're actually getting into this time of year. I think what I've been reading, they're predicting that the mycotoxins is going to be up this year just based on some of the weather we've been having this summer, fall. So mycotoxins, zearalenone and vomitoxin can cause some reproductive issues and related to estrogen, so cause reproductive problems. Vomitoxin is one that generally more associated with like a feed refusal in sows, so which can cause subsequently, some reproductive issues. So something to be thinking about as well. Let me skip that. Oh yeah, I did talk about mycotoxins a little bit more. Feed refusal, prolapse, failure to cycle, abortions. Mycotoxin binders are available to put into your sow feed if you run into issues with that, or some people just kind of keep them in all the time. Other thing to think about too, the bedding can have mycotoxins as well. We see that a decent amount as well. So something to always keep in mind, it's not just the feed. Your bedding can be harboring mycotoxins as well. Questions about that?